rates, our billing options, which I think you'll really find is new and unique in the industry, and end with a trip that you guys can still qualify for. So right now, there is just a tremendous amount of change going on at Transamerica. And it all starts with, my PowerPoint would move forward. Let's see if this works. Doesn't seem to be moving forward like it should. So give me 1 second. Okay, that'll do it. All right, so a lot of what we're doing right now, becoming a better company, becoming the company, especially in the final expense market that you want us to be, it starts with this gentleman. This is our newer CEO of all of Transamerica NAGM. He came out really publicly and talked about the fact that we are going to be a top provider of life insurance, of final expense, of IUL, and of term. And there's so much change going on right now from all these different parts of Transamerica. And hopefully, when we finish this presentation, it becomes really clear that our goal is to become your final expense carrier of choice. But how do you choose a carrier, right? You've got all kinds of different final expense life insurance companies you work with. And, I'm always talking to agents. And it's always curious to me when they talk about their week. I'm like, I had a really great week. I wrote 3 Transamericas. I wrote 2 Mutual of Omahas. And I wrote, another company. And I always wonder, and I ask them, well, how did you choose? What products are you recommending? And what are you looking at to determine what carrier you're going to work with? Well, I think there's probably 4 big things it comes down to when you're trying to pick the right product, the right carrier for your client. And I think universally everybody agrees and should agree, it starts with this first thing, the health of your client and getting that client immediate coverage. That has got to be your first goal. You want to get coverage for that client that starts on day 1, right? If they have significant health issues, sometimes they're going to get pushed to a graded policy or a policy that really benefits don't really start until year 2. That should be your last result, right? If you have a client that has some conditions, you might have to shop it, but your goal is going to be, let's get that client coverage, day 1 protection, so that no matter what happens to them and no matter how soon it happens to them, they're covered. So once you have immediate coverage, then you got to look at getting your client the best rate possible, right? It's so important, especially in this market, the final expense market. Now, I think a lot of your clients are probably coming to you, just like you talked about. They're your Medicare clients, so you've just finished AEP with them, and now you've already built a relationship. It's such a warm market. It's a great market to go back to. But sometimes those same people are filling out lead cards, right? And a lot of people that are buying final expense aren't getting just one phone call from an agent. They're getting numerous agents calling them, trying to position their product. So having a really competitive rate is important just to make sure that policy doesn't get replaced or written by someone else. Finally, it's about ease of doing business. How simple is the application? How quickly can the policy be issued? How quickly are you getting paid? And probably fourthly here, or lastly, is speaking of getting paid, our commissions. And there's some places where we have a real advantage, and I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. Well, it really starts with all of these changes that we've made over the last 6 months, even the last month or 2. And probably one of the most important things is our coverage model, right? It's who do you turn to when you have questions? One of the things we hear a lot at Trans is you're a big, giant company. I don't know who to work with. Well, fortunately, you do now, because we've changed our coverage model. Man, it used to, depending upon where you lived, a year ago, you could have had one of 17 different people covering you. Now we're in a more traditional account-based model where we really have 4 different territories, but that doesn't even matter. And we have RVPs and we have internal wholesalers. But I'm going to ask you guys to write some things down, just a few things to take notes. One of them is coming up right here. So on this call, you can see is Steve Boslog. Steve, I can't tell if your camera's on, but Steve's the regional vice president. I should have said I'm national sales manager. I think Olivia covered that. I'm just about to start my 23rd year at Transamerica, which is pretty amazing. Steve, why don't you give a quick hello? Steve is the RVP who is dedicated to covering all of you, and he has a team of internal wholesalers. that you need to know. So Steve, why don't you say hello also?
Yeah, hi, my name's Steve Boslog. I've been at Transamerica for 12 years now, so not quite as long as the other Steve, but still a pretty long time. I work with 2 internal wholesalers as well too. So obviously write my number down, 720-614-3000, and my email. But if you can't get a hold of me, reach out to Dylan or Andrew. Jesse has moved to a different territory, so he's no longer working on the team. You can still call him if you want to, but yeah, I prefer you call Dylan or Andrew. They're both very well versed in final expense, and some of the questions these two, Dylan and Andrew, pretty much deal with final expense all day long. So whereas I deal with some IULs and some whole life and some traditional term as well too, they are pretty much just focused on final expense. So if you have a final expense question, they are extremely well versed and they can help you out for sure.
And so we'll follow up with names and phone numbers also. We'll make sure that Steve follows up. There's a lot of material that we'll follow up with, but do write this number down. Also write down the sales desk number, that 866-545-9058. Sometimes you just can't reach one of your internals or you can't reach Steve. Make sure that anybody on the sales desk can support you for your final expense questions or if you're writing other product. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the other changes we've made. We removed the age restrictions. This is important. So final expense, we write up to age 85. One of the things I mentioned earlier was kind of commission advantages. And I don't go into details about commissions, but I can tell you product details, meaning one of the advantages is we pay the same commission, the same upfront commission, whether you're 18 or 85. There's no reduction. Most carriers have a commission reduction that starts above 79 or even at younger ages, but we don't. So just one little advantage. This is an important one, and it's really resulting in cases getting placed and paid a lot faster. We're trying to move from amendments to endorsements. What that means is when we have to fix policy, if we have to ask a question, if we need a clarification, we don't need your client's signature right then. And in the past, the policy was basically frozen until we got your client's signature to fix something. So now by moving to endorsements, you can update the application, you can update it with the correct information if maybe a birth date was missing or something was ineligible, and we don't need your client's signature right away. And what that means is policies are getting placed faster and you're getting paid faster. I'll show you a quick quote tool, like how do you know how good our rates are? We'll go through that in just a minute. And then, we're also sharing a lot of onboarding emails with our newly appointed agents on just how to get going. And finally, I'll walk you through just briefly an enhancement to our e-app. So, actually, I'll show you our e-app right now, and then I'm going to go into some other things that we've changed. So our e-app is instant decision. You could use paper, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Mostly, you're going to use, the electronic e-app, and ideally, you're going to get right away. You're going to get a decision. Typically, you're going to get approved as applied. So these e-apps are kind of waterfall. They start off with knockout questions. So as you go through the underwriting part, you already know what product you qualify for, and you should be getting an instant decision within seconds via email saying, congratulations, approved as applied. Or you'll get an approved different class. Maybe you thought you were getting preferred, and you're actually going to get standard non-smoker or vice versa. Finally, sometimes if the information that we're collecting, that fast data that we're pulling doesn't really, or if it shows something that wasn't in the application, then it can be referred to underwriter, and sometimes, rarely, you just right off the bat get a decline. Let's talk about some enhancements real quick. We just recently lowered our rates across our entire portfolio. So we have industry-leading final expense rates. You can kind of see the two stats. Our biggest reduction was about 22% for easy solution and about 17% for immediate solution. You know what? Let's talk about those two things. This is a kind of 3 products in one. The final expense, the Transamerica solution product, is really 3 different products. The first one is immediate solution, and that's where we, lowered our expenses or lowered our costs. Then easy solution is the graded, right? Graded policy is really, you don't really have a benefit. You're just going to get your premiums back plus growth for the first 2 years. And then we also have a 10-pay. Very rarely is this demographic writing a 10-pay, but it certainly does happen. So we've gotten cheaper, and we're really targeting your healthier clients. You're going to see in that, almost 90% of the time, we have the #1 rate for your healthiest clients that are between 50 and 70, kind of that final expense sweet spot. And by the way, about 70% of all policies we issue are in this 50 to 70 preferred non-smoker. So we're selling a ton of that right there. Here's a few examples I'll walk you through quickly. Listen, the difference between #1 and 2, sometimes it's only pennies or dollars. But you look at the difference between 1 and 5 or 1 and 6, it can be pretty substantial. So male age 55, 15,000, pretty big difference. 65, same thing. You can see we're #1. Number 5 and 6 get a little bit more expensive. Same thing with a woman age 55. We have really competitive rates, lowest rates out there. Same thing for a 65-year-old. So we're trying to be super competitive, especially in that preferred non-smoker. So when you're sitting with a client and you're thinking, which carrier am I going to go with? If they're really healthy, you're going to get one of the best names in the industry within Transamerica. You're going to get an immediate decision because their health is not going to trigger anything, and you're going to get some of the best rates available. So people are really liking our new rates. How do you get them? Here's something else you might want to write down. It's transamerica.com/quote-FE. So this is our quick quote tool. You can see it transamerica.com/quote-FE. This is where you can just on your phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, you can run quotes for final expense. And you don't need a login, you don't need a password. So really simple. Let's go into some product details a little bit, versus some other competitors or some other carriers. Couple places that we really have an advantage. And if you kind of see there in the middle, it starts with the red box is Transamerica. You can kind of go down from there. So issue agents, we have a little advantage where, we're very flexible, 0 to 85. So we write a lot of clients at younger ages. We have a smaller minimum, about $1,000. More importantly, we have a higher maximum, up depending upon age, up to $50,000. It keeps you from having to stack multiple policies. And then this next bullet point, preferred and standard. This is really important. We're one of the only final expense carriers that when we go through when you go through underwriting with the client, not only are they going to come out non-smoker or smoker, but they can actually come out preferred or standard. And the advantage there is that, as you just saw, for your healthier client to get preferred non-smoker, they're going to get really, really competitive rates. Well, for your clients to get standard, because we have standard, we can be a little more lenient with our underwriting. And where some carriers might have to push those health issues to a graded policy, we're going to be able to give you day one coverage at standard non-smoker in certain situations. If you go down to the bottom, you'll see this question about Social Security. I'll go into that a little bit more. We're really well known for doing Social Security billing well, whether it's with your Direct Express card or just kind of, deduction pay, checking account deduction. And I'll talk to you about some changes here. Let's look at another tool. You might want to write this one down, the rx.npremcalc.com. This is a prescription drug check tool. If you're ever meeting with a client and they're listing off, well, I've got this medication and this medication, you can just type it right in here. It'll tell you, it spits out what the recommendation or you have to put in what it was for, and it'll give you what that impact is going to be on the client's underwriting. So an example here, lisinopril. Well, are you taking it for congestive heart failure? Then you're probably going to be graded. You may even be declined. But what if you're taking it after heart surgery? Like, if it was 2 years ago, you could still get preferred. So make sure just when you look at their drugs, you can go from graded to declined all the way up to preferred, just depending upon what that drug was for and how long ago it was used. Let's look at a case.
Remember, you have to do one for each drug you're taking. You can't combine them on that system. You have to do each one and kind of take the lowest common denominator for rating.
So in this example, you would type in lisinopril for high blood pressure. You would type in metformin, diabetes, and then inhibitor, and it'll kind of give you the different outputs. But it's just a nice little tool. You can also call in wholesalers, and you can even call our underwriters and ask them specifically questions. So here's a quick example where, look at all these issues. 5'4", 225, looking for 20,000. She's 65 years old. She's got high blood pressure. She has adult onset diabetes. She has cholesterol, and she was still issued at preferred non-smoker with a really competitive rate. Another example, now a little bit more complications, right? She has COPD, has early onset diabetes. And in this example, some carriers might push that to graded. We're still going to give you immediate coverage at standard non-smoker in this example. So let's talk about some more changes that we just announced the last couple of weeks. And this is where a lot of people start to get excited. A lot of people told me that the second thing I'm about to talk about is something they're really going to use and they're excited about. Well, the first thing is we changed our paper application. Listen, we of course encourage you to use the e-app, but there's often situations where you can't. Maybe you're rural, maybe there's no Wi-Fi or internet access. Just do it the paper application. And we've really shortened it. It's available in most states, so not every single state. So make sure you know, I don't think it's in California or Florida, a couple others right now, as you can see in that fourth bullet point. But it's a lot shorter than it used to be. Here's something people are getting excited about, though. I think we have the most flexible payment options available from any carrier. So, of course, you could still use your bank card. Your bank account. You can do Social Security billing. You can the Social Direct Express card. But what's new is that we will take Visa or MasterCard. We'll take it for both the initial premium and the recurring premium for your clients. And I think we're the only carrier in the industry that still does this. By the way, depending upon how you're set up, we did some in certain accounts, we advance commissions, we annualize monthly, and we'll still annualize and advance commissions on credit cards. And I don't know of another carrier that does that. So we're really well known for using Social Security and Direct Express, and we have actually really good persistency with Social Security. And now we're adding credit cards, just one more way to be flexible. I don't know about you. I don't really love giving out my actual bank account information. I'm much more comfortable giving out a credit card, but we don't even take people's credit card numbers. So I'll show you one more thing. We are a big, giant company with almost $1 trillion in assets, and we have to take privacy and security very seriously. And so when we're doing a paper app, you actually don't even write down your credit card. You tokenize. We give you put in your 16-digit credit card number, and it gives you out a random 16-digit number that's assigned to you. So for the agents that have learned this process, it's really simple. You just go to creditcardtoken.transamerica.com. The client can even type in their credit card number right there. You don't need an expiration. You don't need their PIN, and then you can go from there. So it's made a big difference. It's being really well received. That combination of new rates, new paper app, some new tools, the changes from amendments to endorsements, really being well received, and our sales are up every single month over month this year. Let me talk about one more thing. So I know this is a final expense conversation. I just know sometimes you run into clients that just need simple term insurance, or even they need a real simple IUL. And one thing that COVID helped teach us is, you know what? You don't have to give blood. You don't have to give urine as much as you used to get underwritten. And now our non-med underwriting, so I'm moving away from final expense just briefly, talking about term and IUL. And if you look now, you'll see that we can write term insurance up to $2 million for a 45-year-old or $1 million for a 55-year-old with no exams. Well, with probably no exams. About 70% will go through. Sometimes you can get, a mortality issue where we just need more information. But our non-med program is $2 million to age 45, $1 million to 55. And this is the most important thing about our non-med program, is that it includes all of our best classes. So it used to be our best class was Standard Plus. And you can see in this example, a 55-year-old getting a 20-year term for $1 million. Our best class used to be Standard Plus. That would have cost her $29.80. In this example, now we still have our very best class of Preferred Pluses available for this healthy client her rate's only gonna be $1,870. That's a huge savings, right? So the non-med program, not only is it high face amount, it's all classes. This is not simplified issue where it really becomes expensive. This is a fully underwritten policy that just has non-medical underwriting. And in this example is a little different. We're saying, hey, maybe instead of getting $1 million of coverage, they want $2 million of coverage. And because Preferred Plus is available, it's only $250 more as opposed to $1 million at Standard Plus. Let me go through a couple different things. This is where Steve's email, and he's going to follow up. We have some really good marketing pieces that are customizable, that allow you to leverage the Transamerica brand. You can't really tell, but this is an email that you can send from your email account with your address. At the very bottom, you can customize it. It has a video embedded. It has brochures that they can click on. But the best part is you're leveraging the Transamerica brand, but the email comes from you. Pretty exciting that we got this all approved. If you're building a presence on social media, here's some pre-made content, with images and already written bullet points that you can share. Now, if you have your phone, you can scan. There's a bunch of marketing material coming up. Depending upon the size of your laptop, sometimes it doesn't work. But you can scan those QR codes and download this sales literature that I'm about to show you in just a minute. But I got to tell you one more thing. We have a great trip. We're kind of known for doing nice trips, easy, reasonable qualification. So our qualification is only $75,000 in premium and 5 paid cases. And this year's trip that you're qualifying now is going to be, March 13th to 17th of next year, but it's this full year of qualification. And it is a gorgeous property. It is, if you like wine, you probably love Napa. Well, the new hotspot is just outside of Napa. It's Healdsburg, California. And this is a brand new Montage resort. It was just named one of the 5 hottest destinations in the United States, and just looks like a beautiful property. So hopefully some of you will keep writing your Transamerica business, whether it's Final Expense or term or any other product. And we'll see you in Healdsburg. A couple other brochures. Like I said, you don't have to scan this right now. It may not work depending upon your screen. Steve is going to follow up with links to all of these assets and marketing pieces, and even training videos on Social Security billing, on our video on our trip that I just mentioned. So a lot of new assets have been created. And like I said, I'm going faster. I'm going to leave it on this screen right here in case you want to download this. But Olivia, I think we flew through this pretty quickly. I wasn't able to watch chat, but maybe anybody has questions, or if not, we can take a few moments to answer any questions you guys have.
Sure. And again, Steve, thank you so much for all that information. The idea here is, guys, the conversation is not over. We wanted to give you guys a taste of what Transamerica, some pretty significant updates, pretty significant upgrades that we have here. So I do have several questions that have been asked. We'll start here first with Terry. Terry was asking, what is the maximum age for the IUL product?
Oh, so we're already moving from Final Expense to IUL. Steve, do you answer?
Oh, Steve, I'm not able to hear you, Steve. Make sure.
I'm unmuted now, sorry.
There you go.
Yes, it's only 75 years old is the max issue age for the IUL, and the term products as well, too.
That's right.
Okay.
Final Expense is 85.
Yes, Final Expense is 85.
Got it. All right, thank you. Lee asks, will the rates be decreased on existing policies? So we mentioned that for new policies, at least, rates were getting significantly cut, lowering those rates. What about on existing policies?
No, if you purchase policies in the years past, or even back in January, you've locked in those rates, and those rates do last a lifetime. So one thing that's nice about whole life, which is the Final Expense chassis, is there's no moving parts. The way you sold it today is exactly how it's going to perform 10, 20, 30 years in advance. So what you're selling. But like you said, to answer your question though, is no, when you bought those rates and those are locked in for life. Sometimes you can upgrade. You don't want to do it too soon because of chargeback situations, but something to consider. If you're just in underwriting, then yes, you could get the new rates. But if it was issued, months ago, 6 months or a year ago, then you wouldn't.
Interesting, thank you. Again, just a couple things that I wanted to point out and things that I learned from today's presentation, guys, that are huge deals. Number one, that underwriting tool using where you type in the prescriptions, they let you know the levels, if they're going to be approved or not based on that prescription. That is extremely unique to Transamerica. Other products have something very similar to that, but Final Expense, because it's just not something you see other carriers being able to offer and to help. And not only that, but you mentioned that they are able to actually talk and speak to an underwriter. Most carriers keep those underwriters pretty close to the chest and don't allow agents to speak with them directly. So again, those are huge opportunities, because the last thing you want to do is sell somebody, get somebody excited and wanting a final expense plan, and then thinking that they're able to qualify, you turn in the application and they get that big denial. So that tool is huge and a huge advantage to the Transamerica company. Another thing, I know you mentioned it, it bears to be repeated again, the fact that Transamerica still takes credit cards and also takes it directly from their Social Security income, making that easy. A question that I'm going to have in relation to that as well is Transamerica, a company or product, any of their products, allowed to be sold virtually, meaning non-face-to-face, non-belly-to-belly, either over the phone or virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically you're using the e-app for that. If you're at a computer and your client is at some other computer, that's how they would sign the application. So you could complete it over the phone and fill out the e-app. You do need a client's email address. So they do have to have an email address because that's how they actually sign. And it's pretty simple. It's the same e-app as if you were doing it face-to-face, just you're clicking the box that your signature is remote. And then it sends a link. You have to put in like their last 4 digits of their Social Security number, and then you can sign remotely. But it's actually, it's pretty easy.
Oh.
So whether you're selling over the phone or during a Zoom webinar, you can just do it all remotely, yeah.
Got it. And sorry about that. My phone decided my technology is going crazy. So okay, perfect. Again, a lot of final expense companies do not allow over the phone sales. So that is something, especially after 2020, the effects of 2020 having that capability and the ease to sell over the phone, the convenience alone is incredible.
And with that new credit card tokenizer, it makes it even better to sell over the phone, because no one wants to give their credit card over the phone to someone who just called them randomly, right? But if you just have to give a token over the phone, that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
So it makes over the phone sales a lot easier.
Very good point. One less trust barrier to have to overcome.
Exactly.
What is, in your experience, the most common face amount being written when it comes to a true final expense, that whole life final expense product?
Yeah, that's a question. We actually just kind of did an analysis of our book, and a couple of things are interesting. A couple of things are interesting to me, at least. About 60% of our policies are women. I just didn't expect that at first. 60% of our policies are sold to women. It kind of makes sense, especially, there's a nursing home rider, there's some other other benefits for women to own life insurance. Often the time you're the caregiver, she's the caregiver and the survivor, and now you need life insurance. So 60% are women. Our average face amount is about $15,000, and our average age upon issue is about 63.
Both that 15,000 and that 63. 63 is kind of younger than I think I would have anticipated, and 15 is about more. So the industry has definitely changed, and it's really interesting that you guys have seen those changes and adapted to those changes.
Yeah, and that could be a little younger because we write younger ages. You can write all the way down to 0. But I agree. I think that sweet spot is really 60 to 70 when you're talking to clients.
Mm-hmm.
and just that the bell curve really shows 63 as our most popular age, 61 to 63.
Got it. When you are running a product that's under, we typically see that 45, the over 45 product and the under 45 product. When somebody is writing a final expense product under the age of 45, do you see any causes or any similarities between those clients?
It does get tricky there. I'll be honest, I think a lot of times when agents are writing below 45 and they're writing final expense, it's mostly because that's the product the agent is the most comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
If you have healthy clients at younger ages, there's a lot of solutions that I think might be more appropriate. It depends on their health and some other issues. I don't want to, say something disparagingly about an agent that's writing younger ages, because it does make sense sometimes. But I'll just give you an example. We also have another whole life product called Lifetime, and you could write it all the way down to 25,000, but it has substantially cheaper rates because it doesn't have the pricing that final expense has. That's going into a lot more info, but younger ages, just make sure you're doing the right thing for the client. That's what they need to qualify for, or maybe consider other whole life or other products that can fit too.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Well, I appreciate both Steve and Steve your time here today to educate us all about the updates and the upgrades that you've made to the Transamerica product. I know you guys have had a crazy, fun, exciting last 6 months, last year of being in this industry. So really excited that Senior Marketing Specialist is a partner and along for the ride for your all's success as well. So everybody on today's presentation, again, be expecting some communication from both Senior Marketing Specialists. I know Steve mentioned that there was going to be some follow-up from their end as well. But if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises, you have two options. Please reach out to Transamerica with those questions, or reach out to your partners here at Senior Marketing Specialist. Our number, as always, is that 800 number, 800-689-2800. So feel free to reach out with additional questions. But again, today has been a tremendous investment in your time to educate yourself about what's going on out there, and working with a company that is definitely doing it the right way and putting all the proper investments in the right place. So Steve and Steve, big Steve, little Steve, old Steve, handsome Steve, young Steve, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today.
Olivia did a fabulous job. Thank you so much, everybody.
Of course. You guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks again.